What's going on, everybody? Welcome to this episode of The Beer Chasers. I'm Preston, and today we're going to be doing some home brewing. So I thought a couple weeks ago when we finished up our pumpkin reviews that we were going to be done with the fall seasonal beers, and I totally forgot that I'd filmed this brew day and had meant to show it to you guys. I was going to do that in October and got wrapped up, found some good beers to review. So we're going to go ahead and roll that footage here today. So we're going to go over a recipe for a sweet potato pumpkin beer that I brewed. So we're going to go over the ingredients, the recipe, some of the targets. Then we're going to show you the brew day. So stick around, check it out. Alright, so as we mentioned in the introduction, we're going to be doing a sweet potato pumpkin beer today. So I want to go ahead and go over the recipe, kind of let you know what we're working with. So for the base malts, I started with 6 pounds of Rahr 2-row. So Rahr is kind of a light and clean kind of, and it still gives you a little bit of sweetness as far as a base kind of 2-row malt. So I figured that'd go nicely with our beer. I did 3 pounds of Rahr 6-row. So as you're going to see here in a minute, we're going to be adding some adjuncts like the sweet potatoes and pumpkin and some other things. So I wanted something that had a little more diacetic power. The 6-row is just a little more powerful in converting some of the starches into sugar, so I figured I'd throw a little bit in there. I know some people complain that the 6-row kind of gives you a little more huskiness, even though huskiness flavor, even though it gives you a little more kind of power to convert. But I figured with 3 pounds, kind of balance it out there, it should have been okay. And then I add 3 pounds of flaked wheat. So this really is just to try to increase the head retention and the body and the mouthfeel of the beer. Wheat's kind of light and used in small doses in a flaked version. It doesn't add a ton of flavor, especially with some of the sweeter malts we're going to use. So went ahead and added 3 pounds of flaked wheat to kind of boost up some of the body and the retention of the beer. So now I'm going to get into some of the sweetening malts that we use, some of the specialty malts. I added 3 pounds of CaraBrown. So CaraBrown is something I'd never heard of before. I've never used it in researching kind of how to make a sweeter version of this beer. Because I've brewed this beer in the past using a different recipe, and while I was happy with it, I was never happy with the sweetness of it. So when I took the approach for this beer, I wanted to make something a little sweeter than my last attempt. So I was looking for some kind of nice sweet malts that weren't necessarily caramels and stuff like that. And I came across CaraBrown. So CaraBrown, again, is something kind of new. It comes in a 55 Lovey Bond, and it's kind of on the lighter side of the brown malt style from what I read. So you get some of the sweetness, but you're also getting some of that toastiness. And something that really caught my attention with this malt was, in the spreadsheet that they gave, I think it's Brew on their website, when you use it in excess of like 10 or 15% of your recipe, they started noting that you kind of got a graham cracker flavor out of it. And that really interests me. I like the idea of a graham cracker kind of base in a pumpkin beer. Kind of goes hand in hand to me, graham cracker and pumpkin pie. So, I was looking for something to sweeten. It sounded like this would do it. It kind of had that benefit of graham cracker. I said, cool, why not? So I use, let me see here, 16% at 3 pounds in this recipe. So it's right along the bottom line of that 15% where we should be getting some of the graham cracker sweetness from it. So I figured, hey, let's give it a shot. Let's see. Next up, we have 1 pound of Caramel 60. This is kind of a carryover from the last recipe. The pumpkin beer that I made before had caramel, and I'm trying to kind of base it off of that, but make it a little sweeter. So I went ahead and kept that in the recipe. I only use 1 pound of it, and again, anyway, it's not going to add a ton of sweetness, and it's going to help with the body and head retention. So I figured, wasn't a big deal to kind of keep it in there. And then we had finally 8 ounces of Special B. So Special B is just, a very sweet kind of roasted malt. I wouldn't say roasted, but kind of like a caramel malt. I think it's somewhere in like the 180 Lovey Bond, scale. So Belgian style malt has a nice little sweetness to it. So again, in the essence of trying to sweeten this beer up a little bit, went ahead and added 8 ounces of that to see where it hit us. And that's all for the malts. Hop-wise, I'm really just going for a bittering hop, so I added 1 ounce of Mount Hood, 4.7% alpha acids, targeting 16 IBUs. Let's see, so some more adjuncts. We talked about this is a sweet potato pumpkin beer, so how are we getting that flavor? So I'm going to use 3 pounds of canned yams and 2 pounds of canned pumpkin. So I didn't really treat it, I didn't bake it, I didn't boil sweet potatoes. I've tried some of that in the past. I know some breweries in the area, I've talked to kind of have mentioned that they've tried using canned stuff before and it's worked well for them, so I figured let's try to keep it simple. So like I said, I used 3 pounds of canned yams and 2 pounds of pumpkin puree, so basically 5 pounds if you combine the two together. Let's see. So when you think about pumpkin pie and you think about pumpkin beers, well, you got to add some spices. Pumpkins really don't have a ton of flavor on their own, so to really get the essence of what at least everybody thinks of pumpkin and pumpkin pie are the spices. I didn't want to use straight up off the shelf like McCormick or anything like that. I really wanted to make sure I was putting quality ingredients in this one, so I found a local spice shop in the area, and I think they're actually local, or not local, national, at least maybe in Florida, the Spice and Tea Company. And I went out and bought some nice high-quality spices. I think this is going to make the difference in the recipe rather than using something off the shelf like McCormick. So what I did is I bought Ceylon cinnamon, which is your true cinnamon. It's not the cassia. The McCormick kind of brand cinnamon is generally not real cinnamon. The Ceylon cinnamon is going to be a lot more mellow. It's also going to be a little sweeter, and it's not going to be as biting. That cinnamon has that kind of bite. It won't be as biting as that cassia, the fake stuff. Then I went ahead and purchased nutmeg, cloves, ginger, and allspice, your classic pumpkin pie spice mixture. And the way I mix it was I did 1 tablespoon of the cinnamon and 1 teaspoon of everything else. And then we're going to use 1.5 tablespoons total of this mixture. So I basically mixed everything up, and we're going to add 1.5 tablespoons of that to the beer in the boil. Let's see, I also added 1/2 ounce of vanilla powder. Again, this is kind of more of an experiment. I'd seen vanilla powder, and I was kind of curious to see how it would come through in a beer if you use it like in the boil, as opposed to like soaking vanilla beans and vodka and making a tincture. So I went ahead and put 1/2 ounce in this beer, and if we taste it at the back end, I'm kind of thinking maybe it'll give it maybe like a whipped creamy kind of a vanilla flavor. So I went kind of low just in case it was overpowering. I certainly didn't want this to be the star of the beer. I wanted the spices to kind of come through. So just went with 1/2 ounce of that, and we'll see how that rolls. I think for the recipe, that's it. Oh, there is going to be some special sauce. I am going to use 1.25 tablespoons of graham cracker extract. So this is from a company called Capella. You can find them online. They make all sorts of different extracts. I've used this in a pumpkin beer before, and I think it comes across absolutely magnificently. I think it's one of those things that's definitely easy to use too much. I've used 1 tablespoon in the past, and I thought it was just under what I wanted. So this time around I'm going to use 1.25 tablespoons to kind of see if that gets us more in line with what we want. Let's see some other nerd stuff for you here. So we're going to mash this one at 155 degrees for 60 minutes. So I'm hoping the higher mash temperature will leave some of those residual sugars around. So again, make a kind of sweeter beer, as we talked about with the ingredients. I'm really trying to go for a sweeter kind of pumpkin-y beer. I don't want anything super cloying and super disgustingly sweet. So I think 155 will accomplish what I'm looking for. The original gravity is supposed to be at 1.071. We're hoping that final gravity will hit 1.020. That's going to give us a 6.5% beer. And we're working with Scottish ale yeast, the Wyeast 1728. The reason I went with that is, the reason I went with that is that it's a beer that doesn't quite attenuate as well as some other ones, so it should leave some of the sweetness behind. So again, with the theory of the beer trying to make it sweet, that's why I picked that one. And I think that's everything. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and brew some beer. Alright, so with the beer in the chest freezer, that's going to wrap up this episode of the Beer Chasers. So one final note is we took a gravity reading off camera, and our gravity was 1.080, which is actually 9 points higher than we estimated. So either my system was a little more efficient today, or what I'm thinking may have happened is the sweet potatoes and the pumpkins actually converted to some sugar. So we really won't know what that does for us until we take our final gravity after fermentation. We're going to ferment it for 2 weeks at 70 degrees, and then we'll take a final gravity reading and see where we're at. So definitely check us out next time. Like I said, we're going to be looking at the beer, we're going to be reviewing it, tasting it, seeing how it came out. So until then, I'm Preston, this is the Beer Chasers. We'll see you later.
Beer is good! Beer is good!